What's up, furniture nerds? My name is Kim. I'm with Lulco, and I teach upholstery and furniture restoration from my design studio here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And I'm starting to do this Ask Me Anything question of the day every day. I did one yesterday, and today's question is, can you replace traditional springs in a chair seat with zigzag springs? I don't know who to ask, and I cannot find the answer on the internet. And the answer is that these two options aren't the only option. And depending on the condition and the shape of your chair, you could use any one of these three options. So let me first break down what these three options are. These are your traditional coil springs. These typically come anywhere from like 5 to 9 springs a seat on average. They cost anywhere from $4 to $6 a spring, and the function of them is to create the suspension, that bounciness, springiness, fullness, and shape of the chair without having to use a lot of extra materials to build that up. You can create a crown with this, you can create a flat top with this for removable seat cushions. There's a lot of nuances about springs. They come in a lot of different shapes and sizes and gauges. Traditionally, you would use a 9-gauge spring on a seat like this, but the lower the number, the thicker the gauge. The thicker the gauge, the more resistance the spring is going to give. The thinner the gauge, the easier it is going to be to compress, and typically you would see springs like that on the back of a chair. You might choose to use a traditional spring to give yourself that nice like crown seat, but it also creates that suspension evenly distributed across the surface of the frame so that it evenly distributes the weight of the human body. A sinuous spring or no sag spring comes in different gauges too, the same types of gauges you would get in a traditional spring. These on average cost about $1 a foot. This chair has 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 feet needed, so it's going to cost you about $10 to do a seat like this, which is much cheaper. The function of them works the same, as it's made to distribute the weight of the human body, and it creates a suspension system. You can create flat seats with these, or you can create dome seats to get the crown just the same as you can a traditional spring. And you use different connectors to connect it to the frame. It's got these metal brackets up front, and you might see string, wire, or springs holding these upright together. The benefits of using a zigzag spring or a sinuous spring, or sometimes called no sag spring, is that it's going to be cheaper, and it's still going to provide the same level of comfort and fullness as a traditional spring. But zigzag springs put different pressure on the frame. Because of the strength and resistance between them, they're constantly pulling from front to back. So sometimes that can bow the front or the back of this chair. This chair has curved wood here, so it's less likely to do so. And another failure point would be the brackets where they attach. Sometimes, just like this spring seat, if the wood is too chewed up, you're not going to be able to apply a bracket like this with a nail in it because it's not going to hold up. And that will also ring true for putting even more tacks or putting even more staples in with a traditional spring. In the event that your frame is too chewed up and you can't use a sinuous spring and you can't use a traditional spring, you're going to want to find another option. And that third option is using jute webbing. Jute webbing is a great alternative to use when you can't use either sinuous springs or traditional springs. With traditional springs, jute webbing is still used to build the infrastructure underneath where the springs go, and it provides a little bit of that suspension when people sit down. Depending on the type of jute webbing you use, you can get more or less suspension. Just like traditional springs and sinuous springs, these come in a lot of different types of materials. This is rubber jute webbing. It comes in a roll like this. You also have synthetic jute webbing. This is less stretchy. I would say this would be the most stretchy. This is the least stretchy. And then you have hemp webbing. But just like springs, all of these jute webbings come in variations of their own. Some tighter woven, some looser woven, some for seat backs, some for seats. Either way, this is going to be strong enough to create a suspension system for you on your seat. The difference between jute webbing and springs as a suspension system is that it's only going to create a flat surface. So if you're trying to create a domed look, you're going to have to do some more sculpting with your foam. So what you can choose to use in your frame is not just dependent on how much you want to spend on it, but it's also dependent on the condition and the shape of your frame. So hopefully this is enough information for you to decide whether or not you want to replace your traditional springs with zigzag springs.